is this is just an open discussion. There's no Sunday school lesson or anything like that. We've all, if you've attended Sunday school, if you watch Don't Miss This, if you've watched some other study material, I don't care, or if you've studied it on your own or whatever, just feel free to just chime in whenever you want to just talk about, whatever you've gotten out of it, whatever your perceptions are, that kind of thing. I love the title, one of the titles in the book. It says, I can liken scriptures to myself. And what I really love talking about is how it applies to us as single adults in the church. And so, is there anybody that wants to start out tonight? If not, I could take it and run with it. All right. So I'm going to start out with talking about, anybody else watch the Don't Miss This for the week? So I loved they come in and go, okay, I want you to imagine this. Your brother is planning, or your father's saying, hey, was it your father or your brother? Let's just say your brother. Your brother, you're planning a family vacation, and your brother is planning your transportation. And he comes to you and says, I'm going to build us a boat. Okay? Now imagine your brother is saying this, right? And it's like, and by the way, I'm also going to make the tools to build the boat with, because the Lord's told me to do this. Now, how many of you just felt like Laman and Lemuel and go, wait a minute. You sure about this? I'm like, when they said it that way, I was like, oh yeah, no, ain't no way in Hades I want to be getting a boat in my brother's building. I'm gonna be like, never mind. I'm gonna go with somebody that knows what they're doing, right? My brother's a carpenter, but he's never built a boat. He can build a house, but I don't know about a boat. Anyway, so when I thought about it that way, it humbled me about my feelings for Laman and Lemuel. And why they were like going, dude, you don't know what you're doing. You can't do this, So in thinking about that, now I know this was a different era, different time, right? And Nephi was what? Late teens, maybe early 20s, right? He wasn't an old person. He didn't have lots of years of experience. Nowhere did we ever hear that he was a boat builder, So when they said it that way, I was like, oh man, wow. Okay. And then of course they were humbled when that boat was built, and they saw, wow, this was awesome. This was amazing. Solid. They could go across water in this. And then was when they realized, okay, yeah, I believe you now that this came from the Lord. But it took them experiencing that to be able to go through that, to believe him, because otherwise they're like, see, we told you couldn't do this, right? And then the other thing I got out of this, and we can expand on that on the boat part later too, if you want to. The other thing I got out of this is, so Lehi walks out of a tent and sees this ball, this Leahona, right? And this Leahona doesn't work by sunlight, doesn't work by a battery, doesn't work by any other means except your own faith. Would your faith be strong enough? My faith be strong enough to keep that Leahona going strong, to guide the way? And occasionally the Lord would, write things in there that he needed them to know about. So cool, right? When you think about it. But do we have our own Leahona? Do we have our own faith? Do we need that ball? No. To be guided by faith? That was something I thought about this week. How many times have I felt like I've lacked faith in my life to move forward in something or whatever? Or maybe I'll let self-doubt creep in and go, yeah, I know the Lord said this, or I felt inspired by this, but maybe this isn't going to work because I don't know if I can do this or whatever, right? But having that faith in the Lord is amazing to be able to move forward. every time I have doubted something that I have felt inspired to do within my life, whether it be my business, whether it be my family, whether it be a move, whether it be whatever, the Lord has always given me something else to prompt me that I was on the right path. Always. And so then I get right back into faith mode. I'm like, all right, Lord, I see it. And that's so amazing to me. I don't have that little horn. I don't have that ball, but I do have the opportunity to have the faith to be guided. And then the third thing I got out of this was the whole wilderness thing. And, them wandering in the wilderness and them going through more afflictions and more challenges and whatever, right? But how many times in the scriptures do they talk about people wandering through the wilderness, like Moses, or what are others? The pioneers, even. Honestly, they went through wilderness to blaze a trail west. There have been so many stories and so many experiences throughout history of people going through the wilderness and the Lord looking out for them and preparing the way and showing them how to get wherever he wanted them to go. And sometimes I wonder, while we may still have homes to live in and cars to drive or whatever, do we ever feel like we're in our own wilderness where we need a sea parted or we need some path shown to us of which way to go and where to go or whatever? Anyway, just some things I got out of that. I will tell you humorous things here. So in chapter 17 of First Nephi, this was when they were going through, how Nephi was commanded to build a ship, right? And it says that they did take their journey in the wilderness again because Lehi had said, hey, we've got to go back out into the wilderness, right? So they packed up everything. They took their journey into the wilderness. And they did travel, and they waded through much affliction in the wilderness, and our women did bear children in the wilderness. Now, I know, men, you haven't had children, but let me tell you, it's not fun to have a child in a hospital. I can't imagine having one in the wilderness, okay? But this was the one that I thought was interesting, and kind of funny is probably not the right word, but I did kind of chuckle. And so great were the blessings of the Lord upon us that while we did live on raw meat in the wilderness, I don't know about you, but eating raw meat to me I would not consider a blessing, But they're like, we were greatly blessed. We're eating raw meat. I'm like, okay. And our women did give plenty of suck for their children. That's awesome. And were strong, yea, even like unto the men. And they began to bear their journeys without murmuring. Now, Dave Butler and Don't Miss This said, men, it is not a compliment in 2020 to tell your woman that she's strong like a man. But I guess in 600 and whatever BC, it was a compliment. But anyway, a little check about it. I don't know if you guys did it. But it was cool. I mean, just think about their mindset toward it. Think about his mindset toward it. They waded through much affliction. Now, what does it mean to wade, right? It means you're kind of in it. Like if you're wading in water, you're pushing against the tide, you're going, you're pushing through it, right? So they're pushing through whatever they've got to push through in the wilderness, through all their afflictions, having babies and whatever else they had to go through, and wading through whatever afflictions they were. But they were greatly blessed. The raw meat, plenty of food for the family, for the kids, and the women were strong like men. And then it says, thus we see that the commandments of God must be fulfilled. And if it so be that the children of men keep the commandments of God, he doth nourish them and strengthen them and provide means whereby they can accomplish the thing which he has commanded them. Wherewith he did provide means for us while we did sojourn in the wilderness. Now, what were those means? I don't know. But the Lord did provide means so that they could go through the wilderness. In a wilderness, I kind of picture the wilderness as being something barren, right? Like figuring out along the way, maybe. but the Lord's providing the means as they went along. He didn't just dump it all on them at the beginning and go, here's what you're going to need for your trip. He provided it along the way. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Or any
Well,
evidence?
one of the things that really stood out to me was they wandered. Like, I really got hung up on the word wandered, because we wander in our today's world as well. And so one of the things that we talked about today in our lesson was that the Leahona had a direction that they were supposed to go, but never was there a time period given to that.
Right.
So they knew the direction, but the time period was based upon their faithfulness to follow it perfectly, right?
Right.
So it was specific and said that they wandered through the wilderness. And so that means they took paths that maybe weren't the straight one, which would have been the fastest and most, most preferred. But we wander when we, don't say our prayers as often as we should, or we don't trust in the Lord like we are supposed to. And when we are, are getting a little lackadaisical on our scripture study and, come follow me and those kinds of things. But that doesn't mean we're not doing right things.
Right.
It talks also this week about the small things in the scriptures that add up to great things. And I think that we always, we do, in our ward anyway, focus on all of these little small things that can help keep us on the straight and narrow. But even back then, when Lehi was there and he was receiving visions and he had great faith because he took his family away from all of their comfort, he had great faith. He still murmured. Like when Nephi broke his bow, he was like, look, we're doing everything we're supposed to. Why is this happening?
Right.
So even a prophet who had visions could allow himself to, to doubt. And I think that that's where the wandering kind of comes into that. In our lives, we know where we want to go, but we don't have a time limit to get us there. So let's make this specific to the singles group. We all know that we want to have companions. There's no time limit on that. And until we get there to that place that we want to go, be married, we are wandering and learning from everything along our wandering that builds us into that person to make us whole and healthy by the time we get there. And it's kind of that way about everything in our life. Every experience that we have along our wandering path, we learn and pick up from, and then that eventually gets us to where we want to go. So that was the perspective that I picked up from that piece of it today that really kind of changed how I looked at like how the Leahona worked, like that aspect of it. I mean, like, I know it requires faith still and all of that, but just the whole, it gives us direction, but there's no time on it. And I just wanted to share that piece that I kind of picked up on it from this week.
I totally love that. I didn't even think about that. Oh, that is so cool. Thanks, Jennifer. Anybody else have any thoughts? The insights they want to share?
I just had a couple, just in general. I didn't catch last week's, and I know you guys have been on First Nephi for a little while, but
that's okay.
I just find it interesting that there's always, and may have already been said, but there's just always two ways of looking at it. Is Nephi didn't suffer any different than his brothers, but he said he's been greatly blessed. Whereas his brothers say, it's been a terrible time in the wilderness, and we've missed out on all our riches and everything. And they keep going back to that because, and I was thinking about what you were saying about the brother built the boat thing. I wonder how often Laman and Lemuel had the Spirit with them as Nephi did, because without the Spirit, all those things would seem like that's just the stupidest thing ever. And I just always find that interesting because I think I guess I relate that to myself a lot because I'm like, how often am I kind of without the Spirit? Because whatever I might have been told to do or not to do seems just so astronomically insane because I don't really have the Spirit supporting me in my actions. I always find that interesting. And then later on in chapter 17, like Leahona, I've always wondered about, because it's like if we have the Spirit, which Nephi and his father probably uh, did they have the, what was the need for the Leahona? That always kind of hung me up. Because if you have the Spirit would just tell you to go that, the Spirit, and that's what I wonder sometimes. Well, the Spirit should have just said, go that direction, but I don't know. Has anybody else ever kind of wondered about that?
I have actually, and I believe that it was not necessarily for Lehi and Nephi. I think it was for the rest of the folks to kind of give them that actual object to look at and the guidance that they could look at, and in hopes that that would build their faith.
Right.
Because I agree with you. When you are having visions and you have the faith to listen to whatever you're told, you wouldn't necessarily then need something tangible to do that. But I think it was faith promoting for all of the other folks.
Right.
All the other influential people that could make some dissenting votes that might be heard a little clearer than the sons.
Exactly. Well put, Michael.
Yeah. I love, Anthony, how you brought up the difference in perspective on the blessings. So in verse 2 through 4 or whatever, when Nephi was talking about how greatly blessed they were, they got to eat raw meat, and their women were strong like men, and they didn't murmur and whatever, right? And God was blessing them. And then when you get down to, I think it's 20 or so, that's when Lame and Lemuel are like, this is awful. We wandered in this wilderness for years, and we've suffered all these things, and close to death, and whatever. Like they were just talking about how awful it was. They didn't see that as a blessing.
Right.
And I wonder how many times we do that in our life. I can honestly tell you, there have been times in my single life, because I've been single for a few years, that I have not always looked at it as a blessing. There have been days when I have, through sobbing tears, been angry about the fact that I'm single. And I was murmuring, and how many times have we complained instead of, or murmured, or whatever the word is, right? Instead of looking at the blessings that we've been given. And so in the last few years, I have resolved to see more blessings than, the negative side. Now, I've been single a few years, so I've had some time to do this. But in the last few years, I have been able to do that. I've noticed just a different mindset, a different feeling that comes from me in general. And there's just more peace and more joy and more happiness that I feel, because I can now look at this as being a blessing. Not that I like how I ended up, being single, not that I like, whatever happened. It was just being able to see all of the blessings in my life, like the tender mercies and the great things that the Lord has blessed me with, like great friends, like opportunities to meet other people, or to, provide a way to be able to serve others, or whatever, whatever the blessings are, and being able to minister to other people. And how many times does he bring up ministering? Did the Lord bring up ministering even in these chapters, right? And just being able to go through with like a brave trust in the Lord, and knowing that we are experiencing whatever we're experiencing, for whatever reason, we're wading through these afflictions, but we got to see the blessings. Michael has an opportunity and a great blessing of going to school right now. And some days it's not going to feel like a blessing. I remember going back to school, and there were some days it just didn't feel like a blessing, But if you look hard enough, you can see the tender mercies in the Lord helping us to remember certain things, or getting through a paper quicker than we thought, or, things being taken care of with a family that we were worried about, or whatever, So just different things and different opportunities that the Lord blesses us with. We have been blessed with multiple opportunities in the Southeast to attend single adult events, yet there are people that will murmur about them, and there will be people that will consider them a blessing. And there'll be people who'll be like, well, I don't want to do that, or I'm not into that, or whatever. I've said that myself sometimes, you know. But it is something that that we've just got to take a different outlook, a different perspective on, and realize we're just coming together as a group of single adults. You know, people that are volunteering to put these activities and events together aren't getting paid for it. They're pouring in hours to whatever, and we can go and experience and accept the blessings of being able to participate, and that it's there, and that here in the Southeast it's free. You go to Utah, you got to pay for those things. You know, here it's free, it's provided for you. Well, except for conferences, we do have to pay the cost. but still, it's like one of those things where you have opportunities provided for you. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know. I was reading a little bit earlier, and something I found, and most things I share is just because stuff that's like hit me kind of hard throughout the week. 'Cause I do find myself, sometimes I murmur, and I'm sure we all do.
Mm-hmm.
But in Isaiah, with Moses and stuff, and it was in the scriptures, I just noticed that when it came down to eating, I don't know if anybody was able to read, but when it came down to eating, they were hungry and they were thirsty, and so they go and talk, or Moses goes and talks to the Lord, and of course, then the Lord says manna, but he says it funny to me in Isaiah, and I don't remember how it's read, and I'm trying to look it up. I think it's in Isaiah 17. No, we're in 17. In the latter part of Isaiah, but he goes, I've heard their murmurings. Or he comes and he says, the Lord has heard your murmurings, and therefore he has sent manna, so to speak. But I was thinking to myself, I don't want, and this is something that I'm going to try and work on now that I've seen it. I don't want God to do stuff for me because I'm murmuring. I want him, because Nephi never, and later on in the lesson, somewhere's in there, it says, when Nephi had his hands tied, or when they got on the boat and had his hands tied, it says that Nephi never murmured. He just always prayed and gave gratefulness for what he had. And I guess to me, I want to try to get better to where God's blessing me because I'm just grateful for what I have, not because he hears me complaining so much. Because I do, I complain to him along with everybody else, but he's included. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to try to get to where it'd be better, I guess, to be blessed for praying and being grateful than to have what we're given because I was complaining about it so much. And the Lord saw that, okay, yeah, that probably is a hardship for him, so I'll take care of it. But that was one big thing that kind of hit me through the course of the study this week.
That's a great way to look at it. Today in Sunday school, our Sunday school teacher brought up the point of, the Lord sent down manna. And she made reference to that I never thought of. She says, well, so manna was what? It was bread, right? Yeah. And yet Christ is also referred to as the bread of life. And so in essence, he sent down the manna to teach them a stronger belief in Christ. And there were times when they started murmuring, can we have something else?
Yeah. Which I didn't know. That was like for 40 years.
Right.
That's a long time for just...
But again, wherever the Lord needed them to go, he sent manna, and then they went to the manna, right? So I love that you brought that up as an example. That's cool. That's awesome. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
My thought at the moment is just, I like the idea. What I'm hearing is ignorance is bliss. The expression ignorance is bliss. I'm thinking of Nephi. I'm thinking of when I was a kid with my two older brothers going out and making anything that would float on water into a boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were loving every minute of it. So if you're saying we're going to build this boat and two more experienced people know that the boat will sink on you, they're going to be a little bit more skeptical about it.
Right.
But Nephi's like, oh, this is awesome. Let's do it. That's what
Well,
I'm thinking.
The Lord's showing me how to do this, so I can do this.
That's right.
I think quite honestly, Lemuel didn't believe that Nephi was inspired of the Lord. Like, dude, you're just wanting to be our leader. You gotta come to terms with the fact that you're our younger brother.
But that inspiration is always still, if you haven't never done it before, you're still looking at it like, well, let's take sure, I'll grab that and that and that, put it all together, and we're
Right.
good. This is awesome.
Yeah. What I think is cool too is Nephi went to the Lord and go, well, where would I get the ore? He didn't say, where are the tools, Lord? Where's my toolbox? Where will I get the ore to make the tools? So he was like, okay, well, let's start from the very beginning. Make some tools, and then we'll do that.
He wants question. He went straight to, well, where do I get the ore from? He never said, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, stuff like that, I caught on to that too. That's a good point. He just never once said anything other than, okay, where's the ore?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Didn't doubt it. He was like, all right, what do I need to do next? Tell me what's next. And you know what for me, it was a thing, because I'm very futuristic. I can plan a year ahead, 2 years ahead, 5 years ahead. And it's hard for me to plan today. Like, let's just get through today. Because I'm thinking, well, if I do this today, then 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and a year from now, and so it's hard for me to go, whoo, let's come back, And so that to me was this very, it was a learning experience for me to go, okay, we got to start with the ore. What's next? What's the next step?
Yeah.
So yeah. Tracy?
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing? I can't wait to hear your insights. I'm so excited.
My insights?
Yes.
Well, I can't claim this one. This was this morning in sacrament meeting. One of my friends got up and bore testimony on 1 Nephi chapter 17. Verses 13 and 14. And I was so related to what she was telling. It says, and I will also be your light in the wilderness, and I will prepare the way before you, if it so be that ye shall keep my commandments. Wherefore, inasmuch as ye shall keep my commandments, ye shall be led toward the promised land, and ye shall know that it is by me that you are led. Yea, the Lord said also that after you have arrived in the promised land, ye shall know that I, the Lord, am God, and that I, the Lord, did deliver you from your destruction. Yea, that I did bring you out of the land of Jerusalem. So she was talking about the wildernesses that we travel through in our lives.
Yeah.
And I know everybody, it has wildernesses that we've come and gone through. But she was just so touched, and this is where I so got what she was testifying about, was that, yeah, he said go, he said do, he said this is what you're going to have to do. And Nephi, the ultimate optimist, of course, had not so much of an issue with that, but it wasn't easy. All the things all of you have just discussed a few minutes ago, that was a hard journey, and it was 8 years long. Yeah. And, like you were saying, how long is this going to take when this is over? There's a light at the end of this, and he's saying that even though it is hard, he is with you.
Yeah.
He is with you. And you are going to get to that promised land. And when you get there, you're going to know why you were able to accomplish so much of what you were able to accomplish. There's a passage in the Doctrine and Covenants that says that our strength is magnified when we're with the Lord. And in those times when it is hard, we do have strength that's beyond our means given to us and to help us to get through. So I know I'm just thankful. I'm so thankful that he has been by my side, because, it's his peace that keeps me going. It's his peace that even though in turmoil or trials or hardship that, we can keep it together and manage to get through that wilderness, as dark as it sometimes can be.
Yeah. That is so cool. Thanks, Tracy, for sharing that. I love that. Yeah, I didn't even have those verses marked, so now they are.
I know. I didn't either.
That's awesome. I know.
That's why we have church, is to help us to.
I know.
People of like minds come together and we discuss things, because we all see things in different perspectives, because we've all come through different places and point out things that we miss.
Right. That's why I love coming together like this at night or Sunday nights to be able to do that, because, oh my goodness, I learned so much from you guys. So in chapter, does anybody else want to have any other thoughts on the boat, the wilderness, or anything? I want to share.
I think this, I do,
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
the thing that always gets me about that boat story, here's Nephi in a storm. I mean, he can't eat, he can't go to the bathroom, he can't hug his kids, he can't talk to his wife. I mean, he is in a storm with his hands tied up, his feet tied up, and his brothers have been, I mean, I can just envision the moment before then, you know, that they were just probably drunk and partying and having a great time. And he steps up and says, hey, stop. Well, we're not taking any more of you. And, you know, but to put him into such a terrible place, the ultimate optimist, he's not sitting there complaining and yelling at him, you know, untie me, you morons. You know, he takes this horrible situation, and when they finally humble and let him loose, what does he do? He takes command of the ship with the Leahona, and he, as he has through the whole journey, frankly forgives. Right there.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
Frankly forgives them and moves on and just does what he needs to do. Doesn't rebuke them, doesn't yell at them, doesn't, you know, he just takes command of the ship and gets things under control. What an example.
Huge example. And what would it mean to frankly forgive somebody? And sometimes for some of us, we may have a hard time letting go of something, or, you know, somebody's done to us to offend us or whatever. But to frankly forgive, that's a huge thing. I love that you brought that up. That's a really big deal.
Yeah, that story has always touched me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that one, and when they tied him up, you know, on the way back with the family of Ishmael,
Mm-hmm.
he just gets up and says, "Oh, it's okay. We'll just do what we need to do."
Yep.
I guess that's like one of the hard accomplishments of the Lord. You know, Joseph Smith did that a lot. With a lot of things that happened to him. But I guess, I mean, I'm not there yet or anything, but I guess once you get on, or once you become focused on and involved in just the task of the Lord and what the Lord would have you do, I guess what other people do to you would almost become secondary. I don't know how, I haven't gotten there yet, but it's like, you know, the Lord's going to take care of it, and those people are doing it to you, but none of that matters because you know the Lord's in control. And so, but that's still a little hard. I think that's like one of those lifelong, for me, that's a lifelong deal that may never get perfect in this life.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like that. So,
yeah,
my 2 cents.
Well, and I think for some of us, we can either magnify or minimize our trials, right? Kind of like the example we used earlier of how Nephi looked at this as being a blessing, and Lam and Lemuel were like, we have struggled all these years, and we've suffered, and we've, you know, experienced all these hardships, right? So whereas we can go through the same journey like we are, say, of being single, and there are people that will look at all the blessings that we've been given, even though we're in our wilderness and we're going through trials and we're going through tough times, but we can see the blessings like Nephi did. And then or we could have the times of complaining and murmuring and talking about how hard it is, and how much we've suffered and how much we've had to give up and sacrifice and whatever. So, and I know we've all had our days with, I know I have, you know, not knocking that one. But my focus now has been, but I had to work on this. And I think you have to consciously choose to be in the mindset of looking at blessings, to be in the mindset of gratitude, the mindset of you have, and it's a trained thing. I think you have to consciously be doing that. It's not just going to happen. Not going to just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I feel so blessed."
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's like my friend and I went to visit somebody in the hospital today, and this person is a friend of ours, and not of our faith, but just a really strong Christian woman. And it seems that, we were discussing this as we were leaving the hospitals, is that this dear friend of ours, everything that happens that's bad, it's like magnified with her. It's like some huge drama or some, personal thing, it's just a really, really big event. And, we were just, not in a gossipy way, but we're just talking about how, perspective, it's that we can look at it like it's some huge horrific thing, or, we can stop and go, okay, whoa, settle down, get grounded again, and try to reapproach so the situation or that hardship doesn't take control of you, but that you can take control of it. And, with God's hand and yours, move forward through it. Easier said than done.
Oh, amen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm standing in the kitchen tonight, getting my dinner just before I came on. And it's like, wow, somebody had offended me. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, okay, I can just take this and not worry about it. Or I can sit here and let this ruin my happiness.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna choose to be happy. I don't want to be mad.
Right. Yeah. Well, I love the example of that with Nephi's bow when it broke. They were all worried about where they were going to get food, and Nephi was blamed for his bow breaking. Now, I don't know what happened to Laman and Lemuel's bow.
They lost its spring. No.
Something happened, right?
Yeah,
They had lost their spring.
But for some reason, Nephi was blamed for them not having food.
But that is Nephi's fault because he supported his father coming into the wilderness.
Right. Oh, there you go.
By default, anything that goes bad
is Nephi's fault.
Right.
That's right.
There you go. But Nephi then went and he made another bow and made another arrow. All right. He remedied the situation. He thought, okay, I'm a solutions finder. I'm going to find a solution for this problem, right? He's not going to be magnifying the whatever. He's blessed. And the Lord's going to bless him with being able to find a way to make a new bow and arrow, right? So
that's called proactive.
Exactly. Now, Nephi could have easily have just knelt down there and prayed to the Lord and said, Lord, tell me where to go. But he did not. He went back to his father. And he said,
oh, yeah,
Father, tell me where I need to go. And that was able to humble his father. His father went and sought forgiveness, and then the Lord was able to tell him. And then, because if Nephi had just done that, then his father would not have had that humbling experience, whatever. So anyway, and then it comes back to show the brothers, okay, there's always a solution to every problem, right? And that's something that I get out of that, is there's a solution to every problem. But we may have these problems, we may have these afflictions, we may have these trials we go through, but the Lord will always provide a way for us to get out of it. But it's not always what we think it is. Like Laman and Lemuel just thought, oh, well, Nephi's bow just needs to work for us to have food, right?
But I think that too, though. I think that because, that's what I'm saying. That's what the great difference in perspective is.
Right.
Because I think to myself, I'm doing what you ask me to do every day. This should be easy. I shouldn't be having this problem because I'm doing this over here. Or, for me, I relate it. I don't have any problems with doing any of the commandments or anything like paying tithing and stuff. But sometimes I find myself, I'm paying my tithing. I shouldn't have this financial difficulty on this side. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
It's easy. But that's what I love about the Book of Mormon, even the Bible, that all you got to do is open it up to any page, and nothing's easy for anybody, ever.
Even Jesus Christ, the most perfect person that walked the earth.
Yeah. Nothing ever is easy.
No.
It's just like, I almost
forgot. my perspective on that is that we have trials so that the Lord tests us to see what we're going to do, which direction we're going to go. Because every trial we go through, and whatever we choose to do to get through that trial will either lead us closer to the Lord or away from him.
That's
and
right.
help us to become more like what he wants us to become more like or not, right? So we have to go through trials. And quite honestly, I think Satan wants to challenge us more when we're being better.
Right.
Because if we're not, if we're breaking the commandments, he's got them. It's like, why bother them? You know? But if we're trying to follow the Lord, oh yeah, Satan's like, wait a minute, they're getting too good.
Yeah.
We got to do something.
But I mean, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, because the Lord, we're gonna have to be able to, as times go on, see the blessings. Otherwise, otherwise we can get dragged down. I forgot what the quote was from the last general conference or the one before, but I thought it was pretty good. But there's only two ways to go, and I see it on Facebook all the time. We only have two choices. We either go with the Lord, or
Away from them.
to get mad about it, or choose. And all we're doing is spinning our wheels and wasting time at that point.
Right. Exactly.
Because we're not going to get through it. All we're going to do is get angry. And I happen to know from experience that anger just doesn't really do anything ever.
No.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better just to choose the Lord, even though you don't understand at all how this could be a blessing. And it may not be a blessing. It may just be a trial. And there always have trials. Nothing was easy. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. But sooner or later, that may help us to appreciate something later.
Right. Yeah.
And going through that trial,
It just means that it'll help you through the next trial. I'll just choose the Lord. That's it.
Yep. Awesome. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, I want to back up to chapter 16. When we talk about Nephi's vision, this is where we started this week, right? And he got to see Christ's life, pretty much. He got to see the birth, got to see the life, and got to see the death of Christ. And it wasn't, again, until today in Sunday school, my favorite Sunday school teacher was teaching today, and I just love her. And she said, I cannot imagine the weight of that vision that Nephi felt. He got to witness everything. He got to see what his people were going to be doing in the future. He got to see the American continent, got to see everything, right? Like he knew how things were going to turn out.
You know how hard that must be to know that you're on the beginning of the journey of this new nation, this new family, his people, his seed, and then to have that burden knowing that in the end they all walk away, they kill themselves out, basically.
Right.
I mean, to know that it all for whatever it was worth to know. I mean, it ended badly.
Yeah. But it also showed us that the Lord knows the end from the beginning, too.
Yeah, true. But still, I could just, man, that must have been a hard thing to bear.
Horrible. For me, the weight of witnessing and feeling the Savior being crucified, I cannot even imagine. We just think about it, right? We didn't have to watch it. We didn't have that vision of him suffering all that. Nephi did. That to me was pretty huge. But I agree with you. I mean, if I seeing 1,000 years from now, that the generations to come were all falling away, I'd be like, no, all my work, all my efforts, all my everything,
But can you imagine though what a testimony that was to him though, when that he had walked by faith, he had left everything to wander in the wilderness, to put up with so many trials and his ugly brothers and but he was given that vision of what it was all about.
Yeah.
I mean, he was rewarded for his faithfulness. He was rewarded for keeping the commandments of the Lord. And the Lord showed him things that, not very many men who walked this earth had been given or had been able to see.
Oh, yeah.
He knew Christ was coming. He
Mhm.
knew how it happened. He knew what he did. I mean, he didn't have to walk by faith anymore. The
No.
Lord just laid it
Yeah.
all before him. So he
Right.
actually felt, I'm sure he felt a deeper relationship with the Father and the Son through that.
Oh, I'm sure. Very different, and no doubt, Oh my goodness. And then even knowing what he knew about his generations to come, he still kept the faith so strong, because I think he also knew that his salvation was individual. While exaltation might be a family thing, his salvation was an individual thing, right? Am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's our new
It's
saying.
either that or it's flip-flopped. One or the other. One's a family thing, one's an individual.
We're exalted with our family and saved in our own salvation. Is that what it is?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
We know what you meant.
I know. So, but I love though that that Nephi was shown so much about Christ and his life and all that was to come, and how humbling that must have been, and to know what a weight that was to carry for such a young man. I mean, and some people will say, well, if I could have a sign, if I saw God himself, then I would believe. Well, how many times did Laman and Lemuel see angels? How many times have people been shown signs and they still lacked the faith, or still didn't believe after, it'd been a while? So, everybody's different. It is just is what it is on that one. But in 16, at the end of 29, it says, and thus we see that by small means the Lord can bring about great things. That was something that for me, and that was even after the whole bow thing, that was after, the vision, that was after everything. He was told that, and I love that we can still see that by our small efforts of whatever it may be, great things can still happen in our own lives or in others' lives or whatever. All right, anybody else? I feel like I'm talking a lot. Anybody have any other thoughts?
Just like you had said, but it's just the general. It's like it comes down to conversion. No matter what happens, because I believe like every day, all around us, all of us have testifications of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But yet, how many people in the church are inactive? I mean, it doesn't matter. Like God could come and lead us by the way, just like he did with Nephi and his brothers. You could see God, but it just doesn't matter. If you're not truly converted, you're just going to slip again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go right back where you started from. And that's what happens. Like his brothers, they always go back to dragging us out of Jerusalem. It's just because they never caught on to the conversion of what was going on, because they never truly had the Spirit. Even though like in 17, you could talk about that. I guess that one talk about forever. But he mentions in verse 45 about how even through the still small voice, the Lord has spoken to you. But he says y'all were past feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it. I mean, if we have a tendency to have a hard heart, we're always going to be past feeling. And therefore, we're always going to end up, that's what Satan always has, that door open. And that's just that. It's getting past that. And for me, that's probably the statement I'm going to have to live and die on, is getting past, true conversion. Because as far as angel goes and stuff, like you said, if somebody's seen God or seen an angel, My mom always said to me, "It's like if you notice in the scriptures, most people that have seen an angel is because they were pretty bad." You know what I'm saying?
That's
Second
true.
is, you know, we don't like as far as angels and stuff go. We all get testified from the Holy Ghost all the time. We see testifications, we see miracles, and we'll say at that time, you know, we witnessed something that was more miraculous than man could do. But if our hearts have a tendency to be hardened, it doesn't matter. We just slip right back and we stay in the same spot. We just almost never progress. And I think that's, you know, Heavenly Father and God's, you know, plan for us is to progress, to make progression throughout this life and then to progress into eternity. But we don't ever do it if we can't, you know, get through seeing just the whole what we've taught premise of the story, just seeing the blessings through the trials, because we'll always get caught up in the trial. But other than that, that's it.
Love it.
Chapter 16, verse 3.
Yeah.
He says, "And now, my brethren, if you were righteous and were willing to hearken to the truth and give heed unto it, that you might walk uprightly before God, then you would not murmur because of the truth and say, thou speakest hard things against us."
Oh, you're right there.
Amen.
And so the verse 4 follows. It says, "And it came to pass that I, Nephi, did exhort my brethren with all diligence to keep the commandments of the Lord."
That's right.
I guess this thing, you know, pretty much there's so few things in our lives that we really can control. You know, and you kind of have to decide what battles you're going to fight, and when you just have to say, you know, thy will be done. Just strive to do what you know is right. And as my husband used to tell me, he said, you know, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. Right. But it's all small stuff, right?
That's right. It's
not always. Not
you
always.
Know say, you know, when we look back on it, it's all going to look like it was minuscule.
Yeah.
Once you pass through it, maybe.
Yeah, right.
In the moment.
Yeah. So I love also how you brought up the whole miracle thing earlier. Emily Freeman, and I don't miss this today, she goes, you know, you live in a realm of miracles.
Oh yeah.
And I love that. We live in a great place where great things happen, or we live in a place where great things happen. And we live in a realm of miracles if we're willing to see them and witness them. Even if it is a small financial help when we paid our tithing, or if it is the blessing of health when we're following the word of wisdom, or, you know, whatever. I mean, we could keep going on and on and on, right? I know that for many people, the blessing of relationships is something that we hold on to, and we're like, okay, Lord, we've done this, this, and this. What more do we need to do? Right? But sometimes I have learned it's not necessarily what we need to do. Maybe we're waiting on the other person. Because two people have to be ready at the same time to come together.
That happened with my daughter when she got married.
Yeah.
She had to wait. She's at BYU. She's 20, I think 27. Why am I not married? 26, 27. All her friends are married and having babies.
Yeah.
Why am I not married? And then when I was out there for the wedding, her mother-in-law said, well, I'll tell you why you had to wait. And she says, because your sweetheart hadn't grown up yet. He wasn't ready. You were waiting on him to finish what he needed to do so that he could be a good husband for you. So.
And quite honestly, as a single adult, if we're waiting for, I know I've taken a detour here with talking about relationships, but just bear with me on this one. If we're waiting, whether ourselves or someone else, maybe there's things we need to learn, different character traits we need to develop during the trials that we're going through, or maybe they need to heal from whatever so that they don't bring that into the relationship, you know, or maybe there's an experience they need to go through or we need to go through to appreciate them more. There's just different things. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. The Lord does, and we just got to have trust in the Lord and in His timing. And I say that, because I've been waiting since 2008. But hey, keep on waiting. I'll be patient in my waiting. And because I'd rather wait for the right person that's ready than to rush into a relationship with somebody that was not the right person or isn't ready, right? So,
because I think, look at it, I think we all could, if we wanted to, really, if marriage was the pure focus, I think all of us could probably be married, but we just know better than that. We know better that we need to be married to the person we're supposed to be married to.
Right.
And I guess I always wonder, like time spans, like we tend to do that a lot as humans, we put time spans on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if there are time spans on stuff. If it's just a matter of just being faithful and knowing that whether it happens in this life or next life or anything, just that as long as we're faithful, if this life should end before the next step, that it doesn't matter. We'll wake up under Christ.
Right.
So it's something I've kind of contemplated with a long time. Is just that's just I don't know what that means, but that's just oh, that's you. Okay. I just see a number come across my screen. I don't know. That's weird. I was like, it doesn't have any sixes in it, so I guess that's not too bad. But it's just that's that is the object of life, is just knowing that if the day should end and we not wake up, that we wake up under Christ. Right. And everything else, I think we almost kind of do to ourselves, but I don't know that though. That's, for me, that's just personal, that like there really isn't any time spans or endings, I guess you could say, to events. They may not end, don't know, but the conditions might be far different than what we in our minds think they should be.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, that's just how I'm trying to look at stuff, because otherwise we set ourselves up for disappointment.
Amen.
Kind of, sort of.
Amen.
I've done that. I've done that, and I'm so sick of being disappointed. But if you look, like, that's what I'm saying. If you read through Nephi's never disappointed, because he's just in the Lord. He's just like, the Lord's going to take care of it. And I think that's where they mean, like, true happiness. I've always contemplated happiness. But I guess that really would be true happiness. Like, if you go to sleep at night knowing that tomorrow, if it shouldn't come, that you wake up under Christ, I guess that would be considered happiness, I guess for me, which I have to work on. I mean, other stuff, that's just stuff I see. I don't, doesn't necessarily apply to where I'm at, but that's what I see.
Isn't our goal, though, to try to be more like Nephi?
Yeah, that is. Well, Nephi was like, right, yeah, that's our goal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, in our lives, we're striving to be more like him. That doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. We're just striving to be there. And that's one thing that I learned this week too. It was had some missionaries over at the house, and the young elder, young guy, and he was just like, we talk about being Christ-like. We're not told to be Christ. Right. We're Christ-like, because we can't achieve that. So as long as we are trying to head that direction, that's what we need to do. And our trials make us who we are. And all of our trials, if you look back in your life, every trial that we've had has been there for a particular reason. You've been able to help your friends because of a trial that you've been through, or you've helped understand someone's pains because of trials you've been through. So I don't think that our trials are a bad thing. They're inconvenient, but they're there to help us and assist us moving forward.
Thank you. Very well said.
Love it. Thank you. And a lot of times we can learn things from the middle of an experience. And that is generally when the test of faith is going to come in. when we're going through that experience. Instead of, the beginning or the end or whatever, well, the ending of a trial, we're always like, woohoo, thank you, that's over. But in the middle of it is generally when we're learning. That's when that test of faith is like, when the peak of it is there, and we're like, our hands are bound, or ties, or ankles are bound, or whatever, right? Like Nephi went through. And I mean that hypothetically or whatever, but just whenever we're going through the middle of whatever, that's when the true test is coming in. When can we still feel grateful and see the blessings from it? I can tell you over and over and over throughout my life, throughout the last however many years, there have been things where I could have seen and focused on whatever bad in my life instead of whatever's good in my life. And I just choose to focus on the good and to focus on the blessings and see the great things and the miracles that the Lord blessed me with. Because I can tell you there are people who've gone through things I've gone through that aren't where I'm at. And I'm not, and those of you that know what I've been through will understand what that means. But some of the things I've been through, some people don't get over.
That's right.
And they kind of carry that with them throughout their life like a ball and chain, and it's tough, So but it took years for me to get to a point of being able to see the blessings in my life and see the miracles and be able to have a positive mindset toward life. It took a lot of work to be able to do that. So when I talk about mindset transition, I'm speaking from personal experience. And it wasn't easy. But I do know that it can be done. You can go through hard things. I always say I've been to hell and back. And those of you that know what I've been through would agree. Be like, amen, sister. But it has been like one of those things where I've been able to grow from it in a way that I never would have had I not gone through that experience. I'm going through it. I never want to go through it ever again in my life. Pray it doesn't happen to anybody I ever know or anybody else. It is just, but it's just something that you just want to make sure that your mindset is with the Lord, like Anthony was saying, and seeing those blessings in your life and seeing the miracles and just appreciating what you got. I mean, you could, I remember hearing a story of a homeless man. And if you guys have watched the Kindness Diaries, I watched an episode or two of that. There was a homeless man. So the Kindness Diaries, the premise of that is this man is going from one spot in wherever and traveling across, say, the U.S. with no money, with no anything, just based on the kindness of others is where he gets his food and his shelter and whatever, right? So he walks up to this man out in front of some building or something and asks him if he could stay with him for the night, let him know what he was doing and whatever, and asked him if he could stay. And he said, well, I don't have a home, but I do carry an extra bedroll, and I'd be happy to share that with you and have you stay with me where I stay. And he slept on the ground that night in this man's extra bedroll. He had some extra clothes for that man too that he had. And that man was happy. Not the Kindest Diaries man, but the homeless man was happy. I mean, both of them were happy. But the homeless man was happy. And he felt so blessed. He felt like the Lord had really blessed him and had given him so many opportunities. And how many of us, are, so a lot of us haven't had to experience stuff like that. And if we did, would we feel that way? Or would we be the ones going, I can't believe my life is crap and I'm sleeping on the street and whatever, right? So it's all about perspective. Our minds and our thoughts determine the direction and the journey in our life. They just do. We're not gonna not go through trials. You can be the best person ever, and you will go through trials. The trials are not going to stop because we were meant to be tested in this life. That's part of the plan. We agreed to that. some of us agreed to some harder things, and I don't know that anything's harder than another, right? Like we are all learning from whatever we go through, and we all go through some pretty tough stuff. Some of us have a mutual friend that's going through cancer. My heart aches for that woman. Love that woman. And it's a hard thing that she's going through right now. It's amazing to me, though, her outlook on it and her perspective and how she's going to beat this and she's going to get through it. I know there are others like Tracy, hope you don't mind, I'll call you out a little bit. She's been through that and she's overcome that, and it's tough, and you feel like you're going through hell, and you come out of that and you're like, I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim of this. I'm a survivor of this, and that's huge. And it's mindset, it's perspective. It is everything in our journey in life. So
it's when you're in those trials there, Paula, it's like sometimes, and I'm just sitting here thinking about the things you're saying, and I think sometimes when we're in those trials, we're just going through cope.
Right.
We're just going through that cope. You try your best to keep your perspective. You try your best to do what's right. But sometimes we don't have much to give, and you just cope until the Lord gives you the strength, or you find that day where you can get out and look at these things from a different perspective.
Right.
And, it's just, sometimes we go through depression, and you have to just work with what you have. But I know that when the time comes, when the absence of those hard trials might be gone, you might have a little lull in life. You might have a little more peace instead of drama. I think those times are when we have more of that perspective and we can reflect. Where have I been? What did I do? How could I have handled this differently? Oh, I did complain, didn't I?
Right.
You have to, I think that and sometimes when it's those periods of time when we regroup and then we realize, it wasn't that bad. I survived it. It's like, and then you can also see the tender mercies.
Yeah.
How he gets you through each round we have to fight, But I think every time you come out of them, you come up a little stronger. It's like the bone that breaks. That spot that heals is the strongest part of the bone. It doesn't break there anymore. And I think that's the way we can be if we're resilient and we let the Lord, we let him do his part, and we we can learn a lot from those times, and those times give us those experiences. And then when other people go through things, we have empathy.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes I'm a big believer in we go through the trials we go through so that we can help others through that.
Oh, yeah. I got a text message earlier in the week from a dear friend, and she said, my brother's wife just suddenly passed away. She's only 56 years old. Oh. And she said, I don't know what to do for my brother. What do I do? And I said, when he's going to need you, it's not right now when there is so much hubbub and hullabaloo going on and people all around him and coming and going. And I said, when he's going to need you is when it's quiet. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he realizes that he's so alone. And, because I had been through that, I knew. Yeah. I have another friend whose husband's got congestive heart failure. And I said, Deborah, does he have a will? I said, do you have a will? I said, do you have an advanced care directive? I said, do you know that if you don't have these things in order, what you're putting yourselves through? It's going through things that gives us experience. Yeah. I said, my husband had all that in order, and it was still hard. So, yeah. I said, you can't imagine what it would have been like without that.
Oh, I know.
So those trials, we get stronger, we get through them, and then we recognize what we used to see in the mirror in the eyes of other people.
Right. Yep. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
I'm just happy for the Book of Mormon.
Amen. I
I'm
know, right?
so thankful.
Yeah.
So thankful for it.
Hmm. Can you imagine our life without the Book of Mormon? I can't.
Well, I have plenty of friends that don't, so I kind of
Yeah.
have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to imagine without it. I just-
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys joining with me tonight and sharing your thoughts and perspectives. It's truly helped me and strengthened my testimony and given me a lot to think about. So I appreciate you for doing that. And
Well, I got some good notes here to think about too.
I know, right? This is so awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys, even on Super Bowl Sunday, coming and sharing your night with me. So thank you for doing that. And we will see you next week. We're going to be starting 2nd Nephi.
All right.
So yeah, that'll be cool.
Have a great week,
All right,
guys.
you
Yeah,
too.
everybody have a great week.
Bye.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye.